My name is Karen Kay. Nouse is my maiden name, and my married name is Bailey. But I wrote this book using my maiden name to simplify one thing, authorship, because there are other Karen Nouses, Karen Baileys, Karen Kays, and so no one had Karen Kay Nouse, and so this is the reason I used my maiden name. I was born in Oklahoma and grew up in Oklahoma. And I had a great aunt who brought me to North Carolina in 1979. She introduced me to my ancestors who still live there, many of them still live there, and began telling me stories about my ancestors, and particularly about two of my great-great-grandfathers. Both of them fought in the Civil War. They fought for Thomas's Legion, Company C, Haywood County. And through the years, my aunt would write letters to me, or she would tell me stories, and I would write the notes down that she would tell me. And so a few years ago, I began to go through, she passed away, and I began going through her notes and letters and felt like we had a story to tell about these two great-great-grandfathers. And so that's how I was inspired to write this book. I've taught piano and voice lessons for about 17 years. I earned a degree in art, and I had my artwork on the road for about 12 years. I perform in a vocal duo with another friend of mine, and now I have a book of poetry, and I'm thrilled to come here this evening and share this with all of you. Thank you for being here today. Before I begin talking a little more about the book, I want to thank everyone who made this possible this evening. Karen Moore and Chuck. Where did Chuck?
We went on a cookie run.
Okay, that's why I appreciate Chuck. He's doing something wonderful for us. Dave Penrose got this started with the assistance of the library, and kind of got the ball rolling for this. Karen Nagel, whom I have not met this evening, and I know your name was mentioned in there, so I know that there are many that I have not met behind the scenes that have helped make this possible. So thank you all for inviting me here and having this reading. The name of the book is The Thorny Truth and Their Civil War. The thorny truth is because the Civil War was so complicated, so difficult to understand, even in my generation and my children's generation, who are still trying to understand what happened. But it's particularly about the ordinary people who sacrificed their comfort and their time and their family's comfort to serve, especially those here in North Carolina. This is not a book about the North versus the South. This is a book about two grandfathers, and they were fathers at the time with small children, who had to leave their homes in order to protect their homes. Most of these poems are based on stories that my aunt told me. It might not be any more than a sentence or two that she would mention, and I took it from there and did the research and wrote the poem. Now, I would also like to introduce my sister, Kathy, and my cousin, Teresa, from Texas, who flew in to be with us this evening. And all three of us and two other great-great-granddaughters of these two men have done extensive research about their line, and particularly about the years during the Civil War. So they are both mentioned in the book and acknowledged for the contribution and inspiration that they gave me to. And if at any time you would like to ask me a question, just feel free to. This is just kind of impromptu, we will do it like that. I'll just read a little bit of the dedication so you'll have an idea of what I thought about when I thought about writing this book. One is left to wonder how the men and women who actually lived through the Civil War endured the hardships and sacrifices they were compelled to make, or if they ever had a moment in their struggle to survive to even consider the thorny truth of those dreadful years. I wonder as I reflect on the stories that were told and written by my great Aunt Izzy, stories about my great-great-grandfathers who gave up 3 years of their lives to serve the state of North Carolina, as well as my grandmothers who were left alone with their children and the responsibilities of their small farms. This collection of poems is an expression of the sacrifice, suffering, and personal loss of 2 families from the township of East Fork, located along the Pigeon River in Haywood County. Now, some of you may be asking at this point, why are you in Warm Springs, or Hot Springs, I should say? Well, one of my grandfathers was captured here, and one of my grandfathers escaped capture here. So this brings me to Hot Springs to tell about my 2 grandfathers. They served in Thomas's Legion. Are all of you familiar with Thomas's Legion? History behind?
I've just heard of it, but don't remember.
Okay. Well, Teresa, would you like to tell them just a little bit about the uniqueness of this legion?
Well, it's unique because it was a legion, for one thing, but he was the first to get the Comanche Indians together to fight under many, many obstacles, because it was really dangerous to arm an Indian against white men, even if they were the Union. So they're basically famous for his Indian legions. But Thomas Legion was also involved in the last shot of the Civil War, which was in Waynesville. So it's pretty interesting history of the things he accomplished.
This legion was unique because of the Cherokee Indians, and it was unique because it was a legion. In other words, Thomas's Legion had the cavalry, they had the artillery, and they had the infantry, all in his unit. They were not separated like most of the other companies were. So he truly had a unique organization of the mountain men who were called Highlanders and the Cherokee Indians. And so they made it a very, very unique group of men who fought during the Civil War. The first poem I'm going to read to you is one from a story that Aunt Izzy told me that helped me to understand that there was heartache and suffering on both sides. It was not just the South or just the North. So let me read this one. It's called Southern Righteousness. We watched in helplessness. The captain aimed and quickly fired. Then callously he turned and rode away. I called the old man. The young man since had gone in gray. Come help me now to bury this young boy. I washed his face and hands, his youthful, pale, and nameless face, with eyes that stared in fixed anxiety. I spared the blanket thin, a simple shroud for burying, then sheathed the boy in righteousness. With spade, the old man, the young man since had gone in gray, unearthed a soft and shallow resting place. We cut the soft young bark from off the mountain maple tree, then gently placed the lifeless boy within. With none to sing or grieve that solemn funerary day, we laid him there beneath our southern soil. The old man and I fell down upon our trembling knees. We asked the same for our young man in gray. is a story that I think she was my great-great aunt told, and she lived in Canton, in near Asheville, if those of you are familiar with it. And she told about the Yankees coming in as if it happened yesterday, but she was still angry after all these years. But she told an interesting story about what they had to do when they knew the Northern troops were coming in, because they knew that they were going to probably raid their farms and take whatever they wanted to. This is called Cows in the Cattails. A foreboding hush fell over the Blue Ridge Mountains. In readiness, haste was made to conceal and defend against impending raids. Guards from the picket lines warned that soldiers were crossing Cataloochee and on the road to Waynesville.